Brian, our executive director, Ian Bridgeforth. And today we're going to be talking about a very exciting project that is coming down the pipeline. So if you want to, let's start off with you introducing yourself and some of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity, Brian. It's good to always talk with you about digital and content and that kind of thing. So what I would say is, Ian Bridgeforth, the founder and executive director of Georgia Shift, um, and so primarily a lot of the work I'm doing, of course, is like programming, helping with fundraising, those kinds of things, just like ED type stuff. But I think for this project, one of the things I wanted to, I can go back and think about the content in general with like elections and political work and nonprofits and that kind of thing, and sort of what inspired this project, which is a web series um, called Audacity, and I'll talk about it a little more. But like one of the things that inspired me to do this project was, I think, just the frustration, I think, of an uninspiring content when it comes to nonprofits and political work and that kind of thing, where it's very it's typically been very stale or very um just not engaging in some ways. It's very, we've talked about this before on offline, how like, you get these messages and these texts all the time, and it's like, what are we really doing? And so that's sort of a lot of this project that I'll talk about more is coming up, is like, how do we create something that's actually engaging but also not like trying too hard, right? So that's kind of sort of the a little bit of the inspiration, but I'll let you go ahead and we can talk about it more.
Great. Well, now that you gave your introduction, so tell us, just tell us about more about the project. Like what is it about? How did it come about? Just some of those things that to just kind of introduce us to it.
Yeah, so what I didn't realize was the initial thought behind the project was, I about 5 years ago, I think the movie Selma had came out, and it's a movie that I think, of course, everybody should see, and it's about John Lewis and the March on Selma. And one of the things that I saw, I was about maybe 25, 26 at the time, I did not realize was that like all the people behind the scenes, as far as like all the people who did, like, made the lunches and did all behind the scenes work, and a lot of those people who were doing that were women and who'd never got the spotlight. And so I thought to myself, sort of in this nonprofit and social justice work, we don't really, like, we see the protests and the marches and the more, like the direct actions, those kinds of things, but we don't really see what goes on behind the scenes. And so it's one of the things where in this project I wanted to show what that looks like, and sort of also show like that, the biggest thing is, no matter who you are, where you're from, what your talent is, you have a place in this work. And so sort of that was like the initial inspiration. And then, of course, as I mentioned, like, looking at a lot of the work that, and more of, a lot of the nonprofits and a lot of the organizations are doing really good work, and how are we really creating engaging content around that. And I think part of it is the way our structure is set up, and infrastructure as far as nonprofits and that kind of thing is set up, where there can be a lack of room for creativity. And so this was kind of a risk, where it's, how do you take engaging content but not try too hard, and also make sure that you're also telling the stories of young people who are doing this work, who typically don't get these stories, typically don't get told, right? So you see a lot of these stories that are like, that feel like, hey, like, you're doing a lot of great work. How do we make sure that we're putting a camera in front of you and making sure that, or doing audio or anything like that, and making sure we're telling your story? And so it's a mix of wanting to create engaging content that's not cringy, but also is not, like I said, trying too hard, but also how do we tell stories and making sure that we're showing what's going on, in Georgia, but also in places outside the metro Atlanta area. A lot of it is based in Augusta, but we're doing interesting work in different parts of the state. As you know, you did work at the Capitol with the legislative session and that kind of thing. And so a lot of this is, how do we tell those stories, and how do we make sure that um, there is there's we're showing that, hey, we're breaking down these barriers of like, hey, how do I get involved? What do I need to do to learn about this kind of work, that kind of work, and like, because a lot of people just they want to be involved, they just don't know how. And I think a lot of this series that we're launching is going to show that, like, hey, I didn't know this was part of this kind of work. I can do this, and so really, I think the biggest thing is breaking down those barriers to civic engagement and making sure that everyone knows that no matter who you are or where you're from, you can be involved in this work.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. So now tell us about like why is it important and like when does it air? Just tell us more about some of more of the logistics when it comes to it.
Yeah, so it's important, I think, because especially everything that happened over the last 6 7 months, with social unrest and those kinds of things. Everybody, there's hopefully people want to be involved, and there needs to be in a what you would call an absorption strategy of like, how do we bring these new people in, and make sure they're part of the process, and also not only make sure they're part of the process, but make sure that these young people are reconstructing the process and dismantling it in some ways too, right? So, one of the frustrations I had in a lot of ways with I think this kind of political work and just our political ecosphere in general was I've been doing this work for about 5 6 years or so, especially with Georgia Shift, and like one of the things I found incredibly frustrating was that I'd go to all the same event, all these events, and I see the same like 7 8 12 people or whatever, and that was like incredibly frustrating, because it was like, how do we bring new people into this process? And as you can imagine, in the middle of a pandemic, that's also like that's even harder as far as like people like, how do we make sure that, hey, here's what's going on, here's how you can get involved. And I think this series in a lot of ways is to show, like, break down, like, how you can get involved if you're like interested in tech, or you're very good at cooking, or all these other things like that, like whatever your talent is, like the idea is like showing that anybody and everybody can be involved, and we're not doing this weird thing that we've done, particularly in progressive circles and just political circles in general, is we do this gatekeeping thing where it's like, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you can't really be involved, or people will look down on you, and particularly young people, where they want you to, and this is the more frustrating thing, they want you to like earn your keep, or pay your dues and that kind of thing. And I think that turns off a lot of people who they want to be involved, they want to do this work, and you have gatekeepers who are preventing that from happening. So the series is designed to really tell the stories, and do it in an impactful way. And so telling stories, showing people how they can get involved, and I think just really making sure that people know exactly like what's happening in not only locally but also around the state as well. So I'll stop there.
Thank you for telling us about that. I appreciate it. And I see we got a comment from our good friend Gigi Pedraza.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us today. And I understand that there's also a call to action that is currently going on about artists. That you want to expand more about that? So you can tell us, just to tell us, leave us with that, and like maybe any last closing things before you, leave the live stream.
Yeah. So one of the things that we wanted to do with this series, and make sure at the end I'll tell you when it's coming out. But basically, the video series we wanted to do is make sure we have as much community input, and having as many young people involved as possible. And so one of the things that we're doing is collecting songs, and whether it's spoken word, or anything else. How do we make sure that we are allowing young people to submit their work, and we're making sure we're paying them as well. So like, if you have songs or spoken word, or anything like that, please feel free to submit it. It's somewhere on our Facebook page and Instagram page where you can submit your content, so we can make sure we're integrating it with the video series, and making sure that we can, like, we're continuously highlighting your work, and also showing that, if you're an artist, if you're a content creator, whatever else, you have a place in this work as well. um and then I apologize, what was the last question, Brian?
Thank you for that. And I really appreciate you taking the time. I know this is a very extremely busy time for all of us. We're doing a lot of good work. So thank you for taking the time to join us, and look out for more episodes where either Ian or any of the other amazing guests that we'll have will join us. So once again, thank you, Ian. And I'm looking forward to, finding out more about this once it goes live. So thank you
Yes.
again for
Oh,
joining us.
right. I was
Mhm.
gonna say it actually it'll go live Friday. So Friday, I think it's October 16th. All the days are running in together, but Friday, the 16th, it'll be on the Facebook page as well as Instagram, and probably YouTube as well. And so the series is called Audacity. It's basically a 9 episode web series that will come out this week. And so please stay tuned. We'll probably have more content around it. And if you are an artist, whether it's local or whether it's Atlanta based or anything else, like please feel free to submit your work. The link is on our page somewhere, and then we will go over it afterwards.
Thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. So, once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Once you join us again for another Tea Time with Brian, and now we'll go to our regular programming. So, thank you again. So now let's go dive into our usual Tea Time with Brian. Hopefully, you guys got some good information about that. So make sure you look out for Audacity. It's a very exciting new film series. So definitely check it out. We would keep you updated as it comes out. So now let's dive into our topics. So today, being October 14th, being the day right before the last day of Hispanic Heritage Month, or like we like to call it over here, Latinx Heritage Month. Definitely exciting time. So I want to finish off with a bang and just tell you some of my favorite things about our vibrant culture throughout Latin America, specifically when it comes to music. I just love music. Music is just something that brings um, happiness to people, brings that just that livelihood. So that's why I definitely associate happiness with like Latin American. Just very proud of being from there. So let's start off with of course, my beautiful island of Dominican Republic. Did you know that actually we are the people that created not only merengue but also bachata? This is actually something that is internationally known. If you're on TikTok, I'm sure you probably have seen some people dance bachata, which is just kind of like, some people do it really good. Some people I'm like, you need more practice, but it's okay. We want you. If anything, we're very welcoming in Latin America. We will teach you. We want to make sure that you get some of that beautiful love that we bring whenever you come to our any of our parties, even if it's just the ones here in the United States. A lot of us are very welcoming, and we like to just bring you into our culture so you can be very just happy and dance with us. And also, salsa was created by Caribbeans, actually. I always say that, and I mentioned it last time. I don't know if it was the Cubans or the Puerto Ricans or a mix of both that created salsa, but I will say that I got to give a shout out to both of them, and also Colombians about how they dance it. I love, whenever I'm like in any club or any places when we could do that, because we can do not be doing that right now. We got to be safe. You could dance, just always find some amazing people dancing salsa, and I would just be like, wow, like mind blown at how beautiful they would dance the salsa. And now let's go into reggaeton. So I don't know if you know, but reggaeton is a very popular genre. This genre not only has conquered the world with like things like Despacito. I'm sure you probably heard that, but it's definitely very exciting genre. You get it from like different types, people from like J Balvin to Maluma, but I think it's very interesting to see how it's progressed. I personally, my favorite is the early 2000s reggaeton. That one is more of my cup of tea. You know what I mean? But it's definitely very exciting to see how it has progressed, and I think it would definitely be beautiful to see how it continues growing. And finally, to close off, Brazil. Brazil, love, love. When I tell you, not only the people and the food, but also the music. Music is very lively in Brazil, and I want to partake in their carnival or carnaval. And I love their samba. Oh my God, I love how they move with the samba. And of course, their when it comes more of the hip hop inspire or their own way of just having that was created in the favelas of Rio was funk. Brazilian funk is super exciting. I feel like whenever I hear Brazilian funk, I want to dance and I want to move. So definitely very exciting part of Latin America. And just wanted to give you that. Those are some of the quick facts, some of my favorite musical facts about Latin America and how it has impacted the world. So thank you for joining me during this month for the Hispanic Heritage Month or Latinx facts. So definitely now let's move on to the next section. We're just gonna give you a quick Rona update. Lord have mercy. I think that this is gonna be unfortunately something we're gonna have to learn to live with because winter's coming. We all know it. It's getting colder, and that means we get to spend more time outside. And now it's like that brings also flu season. So it's going to be like two things that we're going to have to come back to at the same time. And it would be interesting to see how people and just overall, of course, our government handles it because we never got out of the first wave. And, I would tell you this, it's something that I saw that was very popular in both TikTok and in Twitter. It's like, just because you're tired of the pandemic does not mean it's over. So please, let's learn from the past. And I don't know if you knew, actually, in the 1918 pandemic, the second wave was actually worse than the first. So let's not repeat. Let's learn from the past and not repeat the same mistakes. So wear your mask, social distance if it works, allow it, and wash your hands. And of course, avoid large gatherings. I don't need you to see you in the club. But yes, we want you to be safe. And now let's finally go into our, I'm sure you definitely have heard it either through emails or texts or calls. We are now weeks away from the general election. This Monday actually started the early voting and it will run until October 30th. We actually posted some graphics about Richmond, Columbia, and Burke County. You will see it in our social media. I'm sure that you either saw it or I will make sure to post a link below for you to find out more information. If you're not in any of those counties, the link that we're posting, you can just put your county and it will tell you your early voting locations. And I personally recommend you go early voting. There's going to be lines. Unfortunately, it's a very exciting election. We're glad to hear the numbers have increased exponentially, but I think it's going to be definitely shorter than the lines we will see November 3rd. So go make your votes and plan to vote early. Another deadline that I want you to keep in mind is the absentee ballots that you got to return it by then. Has to be postmarked by October 30th or it will not be allowed. So I will post the link below about how you can request your absentee ballot, but do not, please listen to me. Do not wait till the last minute to send it. We want to make sure that your vote is counted. So please make sure you turned it out to before the 30th. And now let's go into some good news. Like I was saying, Georgia's now a purple/battleground state. That's good news for me. But with the competitive races that we're seeing, there's been just some records that we have seen being shattered. Early voting, the day one, there was almost 128,000 votes casted, which is extreme. That's the largest we've ever seen in a Georgia election. And absentee ballots actually are reaching into the 473,000 numbers. So we're just happy that you're making your voices be heard. It's extremely important that we are, just making sure that we are letting our elected officials know that we are the ones that put them there. So that's why I would tell you voting is local. It is imperative that you know who represents you so you can voice your concern and let them know what is affecting your day-to-day life. So definitely I want to conclude. Today was a very exciting episode. I want to conclude it by telling you, make your plan, go early vote. That's what I'm doing. I'm actually going on this Friday with my sister and my mom so we can go out and vote. And definitely for my Augusta Metro people, Richmond, Burke, and Columbia counties. Locations and times have been posted, so look out for those and check it out and make your plan to go vote. We need to make sure that we are voting. And just finally, our call to action. Tell us about your thoughts. Have you already voted? How long did you have to wait? Was the process easy? Tell me in the comments below. We want your feedback. And finally, what else do you want to hear about? I think that this has been a very exciting election, so we want to hear what are some of the things that you want us to finally discuss or dive more into. But thank you again for joining me for another Tea Time with Brian, and we will see you next week for another exciting episode. Thank you and have a great rest of your week. Ciao.